Good day everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to a new review. For today I have another affordable device from Xiaomi called the Xiaomi Redmi 4. For this review I got the version with 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of internal storage, so this is also called Xiaomi Redmi 4 Prime. So the device is very small, it's made out of metal and glass, and it has a 5-inch screen, and it is that small that you can actually use it with one hand, and that's very unusual these days because most phones are huge. So yes, this one has a 5-inch screen with a 1080p resolution, a Snapdragon 625 and a 4100 mAh battery. Starting with the back of the device, so as I said before, it is made out of metal, but just above the camera there we have a piece of plastic that probably covers some antennas. So the camera, it's a 13 megapixel sensor, we also have a dual tone flash, a fingerprint scanner, and all the way at the bottom we are going to find the Mi logo. And right under that we are going to find another antenna. The fingerprint scanner, it's very accurate and it works 98% of the time, and it is quite fast to begin with. So a very good addition for a phone this cheap. On the right hand side we are going to find the power button and the volume keys, and these are also made out of metal and give the phone a premium feel. On top we are going to find the secondary microphone, the IR blaster, and I did try the IR blaster and it does work really good, and a 3.5mm audio jack, and the sound coming out of that 3.5mm audio jack, it's just normal, nothing that special. Turning the phone around we are going to find the SIM card slot, and you can either install 2 SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card. Now talking about the SD card, so you can install an SD card, but I wasn't able to actually format that SD card as internal memory. So I can only format that SD card as portable memory. That means that I won't be able to install any apps on that SD card. So that is a bit disappointing, and hopefully that will be fixed in a future software update. And all the way at the bottom we are going to find what looks to be like 2 speakers, however only one of them it's a speaker, the other one it's the microphone. We are also going to find a micro USB charging port, and it takes about 2 hours and a half to fully charge this phone. This phone also supports OTG, so you can plug in any USB stick to that micro USB port there, and the phone will be able to read whatever you have on that USB stick. And since we are talking about the speakers, here is how the speakers sound. On the front of the phone, starting at the top there, we're going to find a notification light. So yes, even though the phone is rather cheap, we still get a notification light. Aside from that, we're going to find a couple of sensors, the speaker and the front-facing camera. For the front-facing camera we have a 5 megapixel sensor, and unfortunately, like most cheap devices from China, the front-facing camera is not the absolute best. So if it's enough light you're gonna be able to take okay pictures, but in low light conditions the pictures don't turn out that great. And here is a sample of a picture that I took in good lighting conditions and a sample with low light conditions. So you can probably tell for yourself that the quality mostly at nighttime it's not the best. This time around we get a 5-inch screen with a 1080p resolution, and for a screen that's only 5 inches, a 1080p resolution, it's a great resolution, so the screen it's nice and crisp. The unfortunate part is that we get some big black bezels all around the screen, so if you have the white version of this phone, those bezels are quite noticeable. One way around those bezels would be to have like a dark background, and this way they're not gonna be as noticeable. Aside from that, the screen seems to be covered by some type of scratch resistant glass, and I did try to scratch the glass on a couple of occasions and it doesn't seem to get scratched. The viewing angles are really good and the screen does get very bright. However, if you go outside there is a lot of glare and reflection on the screen, so it is a bit difficult to see the screen in bright daylight. The screen also has very good sensitivity, so playing games or typing or anything like that, it's done very well, and we can also touch the screen in 10 places in the same time. And all the way at the bottom we are going to find the 3 buttons, the home button, the menu button and the return key, and unfortunately these don't light up. One very exciting thing about this phone is the battery inside. So even though the phone is quite small, we have a huge battery inside. So we have a 4100 mAh battery inside, and I have to say that this is probably one of the best batteries on any smartphone that I've seen. So I've been using the phone for close to 2 days now, and I have about 7 hours of screen on time, and that's a lot of screen on time. And the battery is still at 30%. So yeah, the battery life on this phone is quite impressive. Aside from that exceptional battery life, we also get some good scores from that Snapdragon 625 inside this phone. So on the Antutu Benchmark we get a score of about 62,000, and on the Geekbench 4 we get a multi-core score of about 3,000. So very good scores for a phone that costs under $200. The Redmi 4 Prime is using Android 6 with Xiaomi's own skin on top of it, and that skin is called MIUI 8. Some will love this skin, some will hate it. Me personally, I don't find it that attractive, and I'd rather have stock Android on a device like this. But that's not gonna happen because it's a Xiaomi device and they're trying to be more like Apple because as you know, Xiaomi is called the Apple of China. MIUI 8 has a lot of options and a lot of customization options. So Xiaomi has its own theme store, so you can actually customize this phone and make it however you'd like. But that takes a toll on the RAM. So even though we have 3 gigs of RAM, we only have about 1.5 gigs available at all times because the rest is being used by the operating system. So even though it looks cool and it's a cool concept to actually change everything on the phone, it takes a toll on that RAM inside the phone. That being said, the operating system is very aggressive with the apps running in the background, so the phone will close a lot of the apps running in the background, and that means that you're gonna lose some notifications. So if you really want to keep an app going, you're gonna have to actually lock it in place so you can make sure that the operating system is not actually gonna close that app from the background. The settings app, even though it looks fairly simple and clean, there are so many options there, and it's going to take you quite a long time to actually find all the options and features of this phone because all Xiaomi phones have a lot of features included. Out of that 32 gigs of internal storage, you get about 25 left after the operating system, and the phone also supports a lot of languages like most Android devices. Another great thing about this phone is the GPS unit inside. So the phone only takes a few seconds to actually connect to the satellites. It's even faster if you're outside, and Google Maps also works really good. Now for sensors, you'd probably expect that you're not going to get that many sensors because this is a rather cheap device, but you're actually going to get all the sensors that you would get in a flagship device, so $800-900 device, and all the sensors that are inside this phone seem to work properly. And believe it or not, you can even make phone calls with this device. Yes, I know that sounds quite strange these days, but yeah, you can make phone calls, and the sound coming from this speaker here, it's loud enough so you can hear anyone. Now connectivity wise, so we do have dual band Wi-Fi. However, I found that the speeds on Wi-Fi, so on both the 2.4 and the 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, are very slow. And these are actually the slowest speeds that I found on any Xiaomi device. I'm not sure why. So the Wi-Fi, it's not the best. You do get a lot of signal, like the signal it's quite strong, but the speeds over Wi-Fi are just very slow. So here in Canada I was able to connect to the 3G, 4G networks, and I was on Rogers on 3G and on H+, and on Bell I was on 4G, so basically LTE. And the speeds on LTE were appropriate and like the speeds that you would find on any LTE device. That Snapdragon 625 and the 3 gigs of RAM inside this phone keeps this phone very fast, so most apps will work without any problems. Using Chrome, it's gonna be very fast. You can scroll, zoom in, zoom out, and everything is done without any problems at all, and very fast as well. Using the YouTube app, the videos are very smooth, and you can watch videos at the maximum resolution of 1080p, which is basically the resolution of the screen. This phone is even great for gaming, and that 1080p screen, it also makes the games much better. So all the games work really good at maximum settings, and I haven't found any problems or issue with any game whatsoever. And you can check out the gaming test video that I made, and you're gonna find that in the video's description or the top right corner of this video. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the camera on the back, so the 13 megapixel camera on the back of the device. So the camera app looks like the camera app that you've seen on most Xiaomi devices. It does have an HDR mode. We do have a whole bunch of modes there. We even have a manual mode. However, that manual mode doesn't have as many options as you would find on a more expensive Xiaomi device. So we do have a lot of options there, and the camera app seems to be quite quick. However, if you do take pictures with the HDR mode on, it will take a while to actually process those images, so you're gonna have to hold your hand very steady for a few seconds till the picture is taken. Now, pictures taken in daylight look okay, and they don't look exceptional. They look okay and very acceptable for a phone that's under $200. And nighttime pictures, well, they're not the absolute best. They're very grainy. And again, you're gonna have to hold your hand very steady while taking those pictures, because otherwise they're gonna turn out very blurry. So these are some sampled pictures that I took at nighttime and during the day. So you can probably tell for yourself that for a $200 phone, well actually under $200, the pictures are quite acceptable. So it's time to conclude this video. So for under $200, $170 in fact, this is an excellent phone. I know that a lot of people still like phones with a 5-inch screen because they don't have big hands, and this is much easier to hold in your pocket versus a 6 inches phone. So yeah, definitely a 1080p display, a 5-inch screen, it does look really good. The battery life is just unbelievable, one of the best battery lives that I've seen on any mobile device, and that's something that we would never ever imagine, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. The camera, well, it's okay for the price of the phone. It could be improved, but that would mean that the price of the phone would also be increased. So I don't know if we want to increase the prices of the phones. But I imagine that in 1 or 2 years, the cameras are going to get even better on these kind of entry-level devices. So overall, this is an excellent phone. Well, aside from those black bezels around the screen there. So, of course, it's not going to be the perfect phone, but for under $200 for a 5-inch screen and the Snapdragon 625, I think this is a really good phone. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video and you can press that like button. Don't forget to leave a comment down below, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.